This is the $208,000 Mercedes G63 AMG. It's the highest performance variant of the boxiest car on sale. It has a 577 horsepower twin turbocharged V8, a fast shifting 9-speed transmission, and full-time all-wheel drive with 3 locking differentials in case you wanted a vehicle that can both accelerate to 60 in under 4 seconds and climb mountains at the same time. Inexplicably, the AMG variant of the G-Wagen is the best-selling version in the US by a lot, even though the standard G550 has a very similar powertrain, and the AMG version is no more a sports car than I am a basketball player for wearing a pair of Jordans. Maybe that says something about who buys them more than the capability of the truck itself. Admittedly, it's hard to deny the appeal of a truck like this. In an era of increasingly egg-shaped aerodynamic crossovers, electric luxury sedans, and sort of over-tech, this is old. I mean, it's new, but it's old. It's square, it's blocky, it's tough, it's loud, it's got side pipes, for Christ's sakes. There is something undeniable about how this refuses to change with the times. And you have to pay for it, because to get this car, it's a $190,000 base price, and this one is $205,000. The question is, can you get a very similar vibe for 1/5 of the money? Let's find out. Folks, going bald is something a huge percentage of men are going to deal with, and the way I see it, you got 2 choices. 1, commit to the razor like me, and trust me, once you do, you're there for life. Or take the easy way with Keeps. Now, with Keeps, you can get expert care for your hair loss from the comfort of your home without ever visiting a doctor's office or a pharmacy. Keeps offers both of the FDA-approved hair loss treatment options, as well as a 2-in-1 gel that combines both treatments. You know, according to clinical studies, treatments offered by Keeps are 90% effective at treating hair loss and can increase your hair growth by up to 35%. Now, every treatment plan is personalized to address your unique needs and recommended by a licensed medical provider. Treatment is then delivered right to your door on your schedule. It could be every 3, 6, or 12 months, whatever works best for you. They deliver the treatments in discreet, non-marked packaging, and as part of your Keeps treatment plan, you can message your medical provider or the Keeps care team anytime via the Keeps secure messaging portal. Hair loss can stop with Keeps. For a special offer to get started, go to keeps.com/smokingtire or click the link in the video description. That's keeps.com/smokingtire. And thank you to Keeps for sponsoring today's video. We've got 2 interesting years here. 2024 G-Wagen, that's pretty much the oldest new car on sale. And then the 2004 G55, that's sort of the newest version of an old car on sale, because that's still the really old school design, but that was the first time that it was AMG'd. So the newest old versus the oldest new. First things first, people, the G63 is kind of dumb. And I'm not trying to insult the fine engineers behind this project, but an AMG vehicle that is shaped like a refrigerator box and has 3 locking differentials, what are we doing over here? We don't need that, especially when the G550, a very similar product, goes 0 to 60 in 5 seconds and has the high 400s horsepower. Who is that not enough for? But that's not what this is about to people. People want the best, the most capable, the most power, the most fender flares, the most G Manufacture olive diamond stitch leather. They pile it on, and that's why $180,000, the base price of this thing, is just the starting point. They've all got all kind of stuff. And we're not even talking about the squared, the 4x4 squared with the portal axles. It's like $370,000. I'm talking about the regular ones. It's kind of dumb. It's more everything than anybody really needs. But this isn't a need car, unless you're the Austrian military. This is a want car, and I understand why people want it. It's very charming. It's old and it's new. It's like if Porsche still made air-cooled 911s. Nobody does this. This is one of the only cars on the market. In fact, it's the only car on the market that you can backdate. And you know what it takes to backdate a car? It takes the new panels and the old panels fitting on the same stuff. That's crazy. So nobody needs the AMG motor. Nobody needs this thing at 5,700 pounds to do 0 to 60 the same speed as a Cayman GTS or a 911 with PDK. There is no rational explanation for that, but it's pretty fun anyway. And I get why somebody with all the money in the world would be attracted to it. I would stop myself at the 550, but that's okay. I'm not everybody. It feels big. It feels tall. It feels sturdy. It feels heavy and solid, but it's not actually that big. It's shorter than a Mustang GT, even with the spare tire, right? It's shorter than a coupe. Interestingly, because this thing has been pretty much the same size for 30 years, there's a lot of headroom, but not a lot of legroom. The ergonomics are sort of strange, like an old car. Ferraris don't have weird ergonomics anymore. Clients wouldn't put up with that. The ones in the 80s did, and the G-Wagen client will have to as well. I cannot fit behind myself in this car. But these are charms, actually. They're not a problem for the people who drive these things. These things are being driven by housewives and short kings. You know what I'm saying? It's not a tall person car. Tall person gets the GLS class Maybach with the bouncy bounce hydraulic suspension. It's stupidly inefficient. I've averaged 11.2 miles per gallon for the last 3 days I've been driving it. I want to hate this thing, but I can't. I actually kind of love it. It's the same width as a Cayenne, and in fact it's 3 inches shorter than a Cayenne. It's narrower than a Bronco, and that actually makes it quite practical in the city. It may not handle very well. It's only 0.75 G even with these giant 23-inch tires, but it's maneuverable. Handling, bad. Maneuverability, good. And when they updated the steering rack from recirculating ball to rack and pinion, that improved things drastically. That's probably the single biggest difference in the last 25 years of G-Wagen development. Lots of body roll, but a normal amount of steering input. Something tells me Zack is doing a little more work back there in the old one.
Some better steering would be nice. What's wild about the G-Wagen is that this 2004 model is still technically a first-gen car. That's in the second-gen car. They built this thing basically using the same bones and whatnot for 20 years about. You know, they started selling them to the public in 1979, and then 25 years later, it had a little more power. It had leather on the roof. It's got wood. It's got a teak deck in the back. But it is fundamentally a just more powerful version of the same thing that the military was driving around back in the 70s. You're still aware that underneath it, it has the bones of a military vehicle. Jocko Willink is a great author and a great businessman, but he is a SEAL at his core. And just like him, when you're around this, you can tell. And there are times that I feel it. The recirculating ball steering is numb but heavy, requires a lot of turns lock to lock. The suspension is extremely stiff. There's no way these springs will ever wear out. It really feels like there's no give at all. When these were new, if you adjust for inflation, they were pretty expensive. About $150,000 MSRP. Again, adjusted for inflation. At the time, they were around $90 or $100,000. This hardware, this engine, this transmission, and then actually the supercharged engine that came the year after this was made, were all shared with some of Mercedes' performance cars and sedans. And I hated this 5-speed. It is a slow transmission. It does not shift quickly. It doesn't go where I want it to go in terms of gear. It always felt lazy for cars that were so exciting. But in this car is lazy. What do I like about this? It's a small truck. I have tons of headroom. This has as much headroom and nearly as much legroom as a brand new S-Class. But it's very short. It's 180 inches long. It's about the length of a new M4. Wheelbase is 112. It feels maneuverable. The side pipes, iconic. I remember being a valet, and when one of these pulled up, the sound was unlike anything else I had heard, even in the muscle car community. Sure, you sacrifice a little bit of ground clearance there. Who cares? Who cares? 0 to 60, 7.2. You know, it's on pace with a new Prius, but you're buying this because of what it has been. It was a military vehicle. It could off-road. It could go anywhere. A man famously drove his G300D, I believe, about 500,000 kilometers over the course of 18 years. He drove around the world numerous times with his wife. That's why people bought these. It was like people that bought the H1 Hummer or the Tacoma. You bought it because of the history. You bought it because of the engineering. And you could say, ooh, it was designed for the military, so it's tactical and tacti-tough. There are, of course, some negatives. This newer chassis has a slightly different body than the military car. They smoothed out some of the pieces, but this is still a far better windbreaker than anything Patagonia has ever sold. This doesn't slip through the wind. It fights the wind and sends it back in the other direction. Naturally aspirated V8, it's simpler. There are fewer moving parts. He's got turbos and direct injection and all this other stuff, and he makes way more power, and it's faster to 60, and he's got a 9-speed transmission, blah, 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 blah. This is simpler.
This one, of course, has all the good stuff. Heated and cooled massaging seats, the dynamic bolsters that hold you in as you load up in a corner. It's got paddle shifters, a 9-speed gearbox, a twin-turbo V8 engine, triple locking differentials, adaptive suspension, adjustable with the knob on the steering wheel. It's got all the goodies. CarPlay, dual USB, Bluetooth, everything you'd expect from a vehicle that costs this much. I like that there's still buttons for stuff. Climate control, buttons. Driving modes, buttons. Exhaust, make that glug glug. Side pipes, I mean, can't believe they're still doing side pipes. I just love that. Manual mode, shock adjuster, sport modes, all real buttons. Some real buttons on the steering wheel for your cruise control. Thank you for keeping buttons alive, Mercedes. Although we know already that it's dying because we've driven the SL. The leather is rich. The wood is all ash, pre-burned whatever ash. Has all the goodies. Can you get close to that for $40,000? Do you get any of that? Let's ask Zack and find out. All right, well, that car costs 1/5 what this one does. Does it feel like it?
It does feel like it. The ride I would describe as 1980s Williams F1.
No, that wasn't the answer I was expecting. Okay, so it's harsh. Well, what about features? I have a 9-speed automatic gearbox and 577 horsepower.
I have a 5-speed automatic transmission and 349 horsepower from a naturally aspirated V8.
Yeah, I've got turbos. Do you have 3 locking differentials?
I do, just like you. And actually, let's go back to the engine real quick, because do you happen to know what your car gets in the city, miles per gallon wise?
Well, I know what it's rated, and I know what I've gotten. I've gotten 9.
Well, what's interesting to me is that even with all of your turbos and your direct injection and your new computing power and your 9-speed transmission, These vehicles are basically rated the exact same in terms of EPA city miles per gallon. So well done, everyone.
The technology has gone to horsepower and not efficiency.
Time is a circle.
Okay, well, I currently have a cooled massage seat on, and I'm using the hot activating massage. Do you have that?
No, I have air conditioning, and I have heated seats, which I could activate, and I have a sunroof that I was told I should never open. There were some asterisks with this vehicle.
Oh, really? Because Mercedes just dropped this one off to me and said, have fun, see you in a week. What are your asterisks?
Well, the windows, much like curse words, should be used sparingly and only when absolutely necessary. Right now, the current owner wants me to never roll them down because she's worried they will never go back up. I also was told to not open the door without unlocking all the doors first because the door locks may get stuck.
Also good.
I think it just requires attentiveness as a driver, and because we're all looking for more engagement and new cars are so boring, this nurtures that.
I have several different drive modes that can dial up my level of sportiness in the suspension and the shifting.
Go fish.
How difficult would you say it is to navigate a twisty road like this with your steering system?
Well, I have rack and pinion steering, and I have 23-inch wheels with Pirelli tires, so there's body roll, but it's all right. I'm one-handing it.
I'm having to add a lot of lock, but also put in a lot of effort.
So you have a manly car, and I have a housewife's car. I've got the map up on my CarPlay screen.
I have a navigation screen also. So it says no navigation CD, please change CD. But I do have a screen. How do you feel when you drive that car? Because I think we agree that the new G-Wagen, it carries a stigma with it.
The last time I drove one of these, I felt like an asshole. And it made me want to drive like an asshole. I was a heavy-footed driver, and it turned me into like a Russian mobster caricature. But I don't feel that way this time, strangely enough.
Whereas this one, I think they see me as like a day walker. You know, I'm not rich. I'm recycling.
There's something about a very durable good that is charming, right? And so driving an old one of those, particularly one that's backdated or looks like the older generation, it feels like you're keeping something old on the road. And that's much more charming than spending $200,000 on a brand new, inefficient truck.
I completely agree. And I think I could take this on a trail, and most of the people would see me and think, oh, that's cool. It's rad to see a G-Wagen in its element. And if you took that on the trail, people would think you were lost, even though that is probably quite capable with some chunkier tires.
Yeah, I think if you took this on a trail, people would be happy that you were the 1 out of 300 G-Wagen owners who would actually take their G-Wagen on a trail at all.
If we were off-roading, I might feel bolder with this because it's simpler and it's a little dirtier and whatnot, but I'd be so jealous of your suspension and climate control.
That's the thing, right? If you buy an old car, depreciated, you save money, you have fewer features, it's rough around the edges, but you've got a certain charm to it, where if you buy a brand new luxury car, even if it looks kind of the same, you've got a lot more comfort, a lot more performance, but that charm is drastically diminished, and it's replaced with people being judgmental about you.
It is the vehicular example of time healing wounds, or the tragedy plus time equals comedy. It's like time plus depreciation equals public appreciation.
Yeah, time plus depreciation equals car enthusiast respect.
Yes, whereas your car with its current MSRP, people just see you as a rich dude who bought the newest thing and he's going to lease it for a year and throw it away like one of his wives.
And remember, always fight your tickets on the Off the Record app, available in the Android and iOS store, or go to offtherecord.com/TST.